Hi, I just wanted to talk to you about the two assessments, the word recognitions assessments that you'll be giving soon. So the first thing I want to talk about, so the two assessments you'll be giving will be the graded word list from the Jerry Johns book. This is the 10th edition that you're seeing right now. The 11th edition looks more like that book. Um, so you'll be getting the graded word lists, and these word lists will give you a good idea of where to start the kids for the leveled passages. It also gives you a good idea before you give them the phonics survey to have some general idea of their reading. Okay, so the graded word lists are, you find the student copy and the spiral bound book, and you just open it up for them. Okay, you can just start at the beginning because even for the older kids, they feel successful if they can read these easy words. Put a piece of paper covering half of the words so they're not too overwhelmed, and then just have them read down the list. Okay? So a couple things. If they can only read lists 1, 2, and 3, for the graded passages, when you get to the passages, not this week, but in subsequent weeks, you will be giving the early literacy assessments. You'll not be giving the passages because they're too hard for them. Okay, so you'll be giving the battery of the 10 early literacy assessments in the Johns book. Okay, so this assessment is really helpful to gauge how they break apart words, what kind of sight words they know, what level they're reading at. Usually we use word lists to kind of have a starting point to see what level a student is reading at. These are words that aren't just sight words. They also have words with phonics patterns, etc. And these words are used to, or they've been developed to kind of say this student is reading at that grade level. Okay, so they are very helpful to give you a starting place. And I would even use these if I'm getting a new kid that's coming into my class to give them the DRA. I would give a quick one of these first, and then I would know what level, what grade to start them at the DRA on. It's really helpful, especially for older kids that are taking the DRA. You don't want to start them at like a 60 or a 50, and then they end up being at like a 12 or something. So it's really nice to have some idea of their reading ability. Okay, so before you give the assessment to the student, you're going to be browsing through this book a little bit to have an idea of what the assessment's about. So you want to look on page 22 through 26, and on those pages it gives you a breakdown of why we give these assessments and also how to administer them. So and it's pretty simple how to administer them, but you will want to look at this page to get an idea of how you would mark down what they're saying. So basically there's two columns here. The first column is sight, and the second column is analysis. So the first column, sight, means that when a kid first looks at the word, how do they say it initially? Perhaps they get it correct. So on this chart, if that's correct, there's no mark. Usually when I do this, I just put a little plus there to help me stay on track to see which ones they were reading correct. And then for sight, if they say it, for example, for number 2, it says get, and the child said got. So that is how they said it the first time. That was their sight response, their first response. Their second response, the administrator gave a positive, a plus, because they got it correct. Okay, so and then going down to 20, they said same for some, so they wrote same. That was their first initial, what they said when they first saw the word, and then upon analysis they said same again. Okay, so they were both incorrect. So anyways, over here the child got 15 correct, and over here the child got 4 correct upon analysis. So total they got 19. This is really helpful for a couple reasons. It's great here that Johns gives credit for kids that are trying to problem solve words and fix themselves. That's really great. because we want students to do that. We want them to problem solve. We don't want to just give it to them wrong if they got it wrong initially, if they're thinking about it and fixing themselves. That's really great. Also, you want to look at the number for analysis. If they have a lot of words they're analyzing, that tells you something about their reading. If they're able to get them all upon sight, that tells you that this is easy for them, pretty simple, but if they're having to break down the words and go back and fix themselves, it is a little harder for them. So you should note that. The Johns book, for the passages and for the graded reading word list, gives you 3 levels. Gives you, you want to find the independent level, the instructional level, and the frustrational level. The independent level is important to know, but also it's really interesting usually with the instructional level to see how wide their instructional range is, and mostly their instructional range, because it could be a very small window, or they could read 5 passages that are instructional, 5 passages or 5 graded word lists that are instructional for them. And that's really interesting to know. It kind of shows you there's just a lot of gap, or if they're stuck at this one area. So that's an interesting thing to know. All right, so that's the Johns assessment. So what you want to do is take this information. It's really going to help you know where to start the passages. So again, if the kid can only do the first through third passage or can't pass all of those, you're going to be giving them the early reading assessment passages. The early assessment, the early literacy assessment. And if they're able to get further on up, you'll know where to start their level passages. So if they are getting, you want to look at their independent range, and right below their independent range where they score instructional for the first time, that's where you're going to start their passage reading. Okay, so for example, if they get independent at the 7th grade word list but instructional at the 6th grade word list, you're going to start the passages on the 6th grade readings. So you'll know where to start, and then you won't have to start all the way at the 1st grade passages for that student. Okay? So start with this assessment, and then you're going to move on to the phonics survey. You should read through in the scan that is up for you. Please read through the administration procedures. Also look at this chart of what level you should be giving when. You can use how they scored on what grade level they scored on the word passages to figure out what parts to start with on here. So you can read through this and figure out based on how they just scored. That's why I wanted you to give the graded word passages, the graded word list first. All right, and then this other chart lets you know, based on their scores, what grade level they're scoring, okay, or what they need support with, okay. All right, so for this, you're going to give the kids these student passages and use cards or a piece of paper to cover up so they're not overwhelmed by all the words on one page. And before you even give them these short vowel words, you're going to start excuse me, you're going to start by having them say the letter names. So you can skip this part if they're in middle school or high school, but in my perspective, it's always really interesting to find out those middle schoolers or high schoolers that don't know the names of their letters. It happens a lot, so or the sounds. But don't be surprised if older kids don't know the vowel sounds. They could just be out of practice by knowing how to excuse me, spit that information back. All right, so short vowel sounds sound like eh, I, ah. Edge of the chair, in the chair, at the chair, on the chair, under the chair, All right? Long vowels, E, I, A, O, U, they sound like the letter name. Okay. And for these, you're just going to have them read through them. If they, I think it's missed 2 or more, in the first two lists of real words, you're going to skip the last list of pseudo words. So you want to go through them. And please note what boxes you should give for what grade, because for the kindergarten students, they're not going to be doing some of these complicated words. All right, so and then on your score sheet, you're going to, I don't know if you can see my work, but you're just going to mark above what they said and check it if they get it right, and then score here what they got. Okay, and it gives you some idea of what the kids did. This kid did not do super well, as you can see. All right, so sorry about my sneezing. Let me know if you have any questions. These assessments are really helpful to see how kids are analyzing words, breaking them apart. It can give you some insight into how they spell words, etc. But again, this is really how they're reading words, not how they're spelling words, but a lot of times they're linked together. We are going to do a spelling test later. So again, a lot of times they're linked, but they are different. And it doesn't always translate. So anyways, all right, thank you so much. And I hope you guys are doing well and have a great night. All right, bye.